Good evening. Welcome to the 5-8, where we take 5 of the week's most notable topics and discuss them for 8 minutes each. 5 topics, 8 minutes. 2 hosts, 2 guests tonight. A little singing, a lot of curse words, and as many cocktails as we deem necessary. LB, how are you?
I'm well.
What are you drinking?
It's a day. I'm having a Stella. I'm having a beer.
Okay.
It's a little warm. It feels good to have a cold beer. We've been packing up boxes, and this is what I'm doing.
Okay.
And speaking of boxes, what are you having? Oh, you're doing the champagne. Good for you.
Yeah,
for
you know, I have these nice champagne flutes that we got, these crystal ones that we got for our wedding. And if you can't have them after the 37 count or 38 count indictment, there's been some discrepancy. The Washington Post said it's 37, that my eyeballs say 38, but I don't know. We'll have to ask our guest to explain this discrepancy. If I can't use them today, when can I use them? I say so.
Exactly right. All right, to the boxes.
To the boxes, yeah.
To the boxes.
Because, as we know, it's a very special day in our history. I never thought I'd see it coming. And I think the reason that everybody's watching this show tonight is to commune about the fact that Boris Johnson has finally stepped down as a member of parliament. And,
yes, I mean,
right? That's the big story.
Haul.
Yeah.
It's a big story. We've been waiting for this. It's what we all needed.
Yeah, I think so. We got him. We got Matt Gaetz, the ethics case being reopened. Julian Assange is coming to the U.S. Ken Paxton's dude, real estate buddy, got pinched.
Yeah.
That happened.
Pat Robertson died.
Yep. That explains the fire and brimstone around New York City, I think. The little hell portal opened to suck him in.
Portal opened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And something else. So. Something else.
Was there another story this week? I don't know.
Think there's another story. You know, something I was just saying in our pre-show thing, something that Greg and I certainly have every right to have a lot of schadenfreude and sing a lot of crow about and all of this. And we've seen our tweets from 2017 and all the stuff we've done. And instead, I just feel sick to my stomach. I feel sick to my stomach. There is no, I mean, yay for accountability. Yay that some white guy finally showed up. We always pin all of our hopes on the one white guy instead of us as a community taking care of and people doing their job in their lanes. But it looks like he's doing it. Looks like Jack Smith is bringing down the hammer.
That's what it looks like.
What are your thoughts about it? We do have a little bit of a different thing tonight because we're both reacting to the same thing, so we don't have different segments for each other. So I'm just going to put.
I mean, it's kind of
15 minutes on the clock. Let's put 15.
So we'll put 15. We'll put 15.
And let's just talk. You go. You start. What was your reaction to all this?
I mean, I'm still sort of dumbfounded that it happened. I mean, we've been waiting a long time for some meaningful accountability for Trump, and that the bullshit indictment from New York City was not it. I'm glad that happened, but that was not. I actually forgot that even happened. Like I literally forgot because it was such a nothing burger, right? This is not that. This is a thunderbolt from the sky, and that's it. This is what we have been waiting for 7 years today. And I want to get to that too, but I'm looking at the responses from the Republicans, and this is my sort of overarching thought / rant here. But Josh Hawley, do we still have a constitution? He asks, or maybe. If people in power can jail their political opponents at will, we don't have a republic anymore. Yeah, you're right, Josh. And this ain't that. So sit the fuck down, you traitor. Yeah. Okay. Ron DeSantis. The weaponization of federal law enforcement represents a moral threat to a free society. That is true, but again, this ain't that. Matt Gaetz, imagine being naive enough to believe that the Biden bribe evidence and Trump indictment happening the same day was a coincidence. These are people that are in fucking Congress, in power, still backing this guy. How many years ago, how many Scaramucci's ago was it that Scaramucci was talking about off-ramps for Republicans? was it 6 years ago at this point? It was a long time ago.
Long time.
And they have had so many opportunities to just throw this guy overboard and move on, and they won't do it. They will not do it. And this is dangerous. And the reason why is we've had 7 years now of this. Today, as people who listen to my podcast and read my Prevail know, today is the 7-year anniversary of the Trump Tower meeting with Junior, Kushner, Manafort, and Russian representatives of Putin. Okay. 20 minutes after that meeting, Trump tweets for the first time about the missing emails of Hillary Clinton's 33,000 emails, introducing into the discourse this bullshit narrative about the fake emails that would ultimately doom her presidency. That happened 20 minutes after that fucking meeting was over. 7 years ago, we've been on this shit. Time magazine was so sure that Junior was going to get indicted that they put him on the cover of the magazine with a headline, red-handed. But he didn't. He didn't get indicted because Mueller thought, short, he's too dumb. He didn't realize what he was doing. Because that's always what happens when we break the law, right? We don't realize what we're doing. That's a great excuse in court, I guess. But it's been going on for so long now, and we've been waiting and waiting and waiting. And one of the byproducts of that is that their side is emboldened. And now, again, the Mogilevich defense, I wrote, we'll talk about him later, but that defense is, hey, if I was a criminal, they would have indicted me by now, right? They've been able to say that about Trump for 7 years now. Into this period of time. And in that 7 years, they're emboldened. So people now, when Josh Hawley and Ron DeSantis and these other Republicans say this shit about weaponization of DOJ, there are tens of millions of Americans who believe it. And because the media has just sucked for the most part, not the breaking news stories, not even some of the investigative stuff, but the context of media has just failed abysmally still, 7 years. Chris Lick took over. What happened? Did he introduce a way to insert context into things so people would understand the larger implications of stories? Nah, he didn't do that. He just fired the people that, anybody that remotely was connected to that, he got rid of. So
he just had a laugh track ready. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the both sidesing, it's this and that. And again, Dirty Rubles came out 5 fucking years ago. Your Sit Journo was online even before that. We were not trained journalistic professionals when these things came out. Like, come on. And how do I feel? I'm relieved. I'm relieved because I think it's going to be a good thing. And I'm fucking sad. I've just been kind of sad, honestly. I know people are excited. I bought the champagne to try to cheer myself up, to be honest, because I'm not sad for America. I mean, I'm sad for just this failure, a failure by the media, a failure by 3 successive presidents' justice departments until now, including Obama's. Obama was president for months after that election. He could have named a special prosecutor in December of 2016. And it would have been somebody that wasn't fucking Robert Mueller, an ancient Republican white guy. It would have been somebody not like that. And maybe all of history would be very different. But he was too busy planning his windsurfing and having senioritis and didn't. So let's not absolve him of responsibility. It was a miracle we got the Mueller thing at all when Trump was president in hindsight. And Mueller did go after these people, but, and I don't know, there's a lot of argument on Twitter now, like, hey, all you Merrick Garland people that said he wasn't doing anything, how do you feel now? I feel the same way I've always felt. I think he did what he was supposed to do, and he's still not good at his job, Whatever, dude. Great. Good for you. You finally made this thing happen like way too late and didn't barely spoke for 2.5 years. Great. Good for you. So that's it. That's my rant. I went on too long.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. No, it's the lack of urgency, right? Mm-hmm. So you and I early on, even look, we can go back to, let's wait for we have got a couple guests tonight, and we've got a very special, they're both very special. So we have something great to bring to everybody. And we'll circle back around with both of them of the early stuff and the stuff that reaches back decades about Donald that we were talking about, and the framework for dirty rubles, dirty money laundering, right? The world beneath. We'll get into it. I just think if we want to go back to what has been plaguing us by way of Washington and the Department of Justice in terms of addressing this man and our news media, which is in its own little lane. It has been a lack of urgency around where we could hold him accountable, and we needed to hold him accountable. And there was a lot of thwarting or a lot of just dickering, I'm there with you on that. The reason why we were raising such alarms for so long, and let me tell you, everyone, raise those alarms now, even more so, is that no one in the history, truly in history of all mankind, certainly in the couple of centuries that there's been printing and the ability to publish and disseminate propaganda en masse, and the place that that's at now with technology, with social media platforms, all of that, the propaganda machine behind and around and emboldening Donald Trump and protecting Donald Trump is unlike anything we have ever been up against.
Yes.
It has always been something, it's enabled by hostile foreign intelligence services. That was in the Mueller report.
Yes, it was.
There's probably 300 pages on that. There were actual indictments of Russians, Kremlin-affiliated Russians from Mueller specific to that. It hasn't gone away. It hasn't diminished. It has only mutated, morphed, and gained tremendous power because a lot of very corrupt Americans and just, and very diseased minds, I believe, are in it now since it was built for him and have been for years. And they're just radicalizing people. They're just radicalizing and radicalizing and radicalizing and radicalizing. And there's an engagement with the people that you're so angry with, and I am as well, in terms of our GOP officials. We've got Andy Biggs coming out today. We've got all these people actually calling for violence now from the public in response to the rule of law finally finding Donald Trump, finding him, this career criminal who came from a crime family. I'm watching now in the lane of so that's why it's upsetting, that's why it makes me sick, is that legal, all the people that are how do you feel now for criticizing Merrick Garland? It's like, my only criticism of him was what I believe he was putting forward as cautiousness, or the people on his behalf were saying he's just cautious, he's just being careful, was actual cowardice. Whatever it was, whether I'm right, what doesn't matter, the time that went by, and it's not a natural process. There was plenty of people who were saying, act now, we've got now. You had Robert Mueller in front of Congress saying, as soon as he's out of office, you can charge him with the obstruction of justice, the 10 counts of obstruction of justice. Granted, we had to wait a few months before Joe Biden could get his attorney general in place, but then he let that lapse. The time ran out on that. And here we are again with obstruction, as if he wasn't going to. So eventually the hand was forced. And of course you're going to get this guy in obstruction. He's a mobster. That's all they fucking do. That's all they do. Because the only thing that stops them from having what they want is the Department of Justice, is the rule of law. Yeah. So if they want to get away with their crimes because they're criminals, they obstruct. That's it, guys. It's a real simple fucking formula. He learned it from the best. And he learned how to use the propaganda from the best, from Roy. This man is a career criminal. And we, the American people, elected him. And the Republican Party installed him.
Yeah.
At the top of the ticket, and then pushed that beast through with the help of hostile foreign intelligence services. The very kinds of people who would love to get their hands on our secrets. Yeah. That's what we're looking at here. Did he sell them? Did he give them? I don't know. He took them. He didn't store them properly. He obstructed justice. He did everything he could to not turn them back over. Why? Why, dude? It's not some personality disorder. He just needed to be a collector and he hoards things. I've heard all of this today, even.
Oh, God.
No, this man does nothing for those reasons. It's not because he wanted to brag, but we'll get to it. We'll get to it, and we'll get to our guests who will walk through what we know now that's new, right? And everybody always remembering in terms of the Espionage Act, the crimes that he committed fall underneath that act. It doesn't necessarily mean that there was a completed act of espionage. But I think, for me, I think all Americans should assume that because, and this is why those crimes fall, that what he's charged with falls underneath the Espionage Act, is that if product like that, intelligence product like that, those kinds of secrets aren't in a secure facility, aren't handled with the utmost of care and followed by the rules, then everyone must assume that they're out in the wild. They're gone. It's gone. It's out. Our enemies know exactly how we would plan to defend ourselves. There's stuff in there about where our vulnerabilities are if we were to be attacked. That's the kind of shit that this man took. Defense secrets at the highest levels. There's nuclear technology, stuff in the Department of Energy underneath there.
Yeah.
If you just look at the indictment and all the different categories of agencies that are affected because they have a part in the product that he stole.
Yeah.
You can see how vulnerable we are and where we're vulnerable. Again, it was that he didn't secure this, that he was careless with it, that he lied about it, that he obstructed about it, that he kept hiding it and moving it and leaving it in places where any, look, he can't get out. He can't get away from the fucking toilet, this guy. Everything in his life revolves around his fucking toilet. Somebody tweeted he didn't have he didn't even respect our secrets enough to put them with the golden toilet. They're in a tacky fucking short little bathroom with a shower stall on a tension rod and a bucket. Where the fuck was that bathroom? Not secure. You can bet your ass somebody went in there and cleaned it. Who was that? Where did you hire her or him?
I mean,
Come on, everybody. It's enough with the gaslighting around how, he's just stupid. Oh, they're just, and there's plenty of Keystone Cop, Benny Hill soundtrack we could put to this indictment. Oh, no, don't put it there. Oh, no. And then Melania chiming in. It's clearly her. Like, we do not want this. I have my luggage. Don't put this in bathroom. That fucking, Soviet era tart, right? Is like, you would think this would be, she would have some job of being about this stuff. She didn't even want it around because her closet's more important to her. Her wardrobe. This is going to interfere with my Louis Vuitton. Get it out. They're moving it all around. Good Lord.
I mean, to be fair, Mar-a-Lago has crack security. It's not like you could just say you're a Rothschild and waltz in there. Oh, wait, never mind. Scratch that. In fact, that opposite is true. Literally anybody that writes a check can get into that place. And it's not like the bad guys don't have money, right? They have
or know how to just get in somewhere.
Yeah. One last thing.
But her emails, Greg. But her emails.
Right. That was the last thing that I wanted to say is the irony here. 7 years to the day, okay, that the email story was released, is that Donald J. Trump is going to go down for the same crime that he falsely and wrongly accused Hillary Clinton of committing in 2016. So, karma, man. I don't know.
Karma, man.
I guess, right?
All right. Yeah. Well, we didn't feel like tonight was a night for our usual playful joke, but we are going to bring you great media in the after hours.
I was going to say, because we forgot to say we're going to have an after hours.
We're going to have an after hours. We want to see you guys all there. We'll play what we were going to play tonight before we knew that this whole thing was going down today.
Yeah.
But I think it is good to always have like a little break and hear from something. And so what we grabbed was Jack Smith's presser, which is only like 2 minutes long. So let's listen to Jack Smith and then we'll get right into our first guest. How's this?
Good afternoon. Today, an indictment was unsealed. charging Donald J. Trump with felony violations of our national security laws, as well as participating in a conspiracy to obstruct justice. This indictment was voted by a grand jury of citizens in the Southern District of Florida, and I invite everyone to read it in full to understand the scope and the gravity of the crimes charged. The men and women of the United States intelligence community and our armed forces dedicate their lives to protecting our nation and its people. Our laws that protect national defense information are critical to the safety and security of the United States, and they must be enforced. Violations of those laws put our country at risk. Adherence to the rule of law is a bedrock principle of the Department of Justice, and our nation's commitment to the rule of law sets an example for the world. We have one set of laws in this country, and they apply to everyone. Applying those laws, collecting facts, that's what determines the outcome of an investigation. Nothing more and nothing less. The prosecutors in my office are among the most talented and experienced in the Department of Justice. They have investigated this case hewing to the highest ethical standards, and they will continue to do so as this case proceeds. It's very important for me to note that the defendants in this case must be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. To that end, my office will seek a speedy trial in this matter, consistent with the public interest and the rights of the accused. We very much look forward to presenting our case to a jury of citizens in the Southern District of Florida. In conclusion, I would like to thank the dedicated public servants of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, with whom my office is conducting this investigation and who work tirelessly every day upholding the rule of law in our country. I'm deeply proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with them. Thank you very much.
Why Florida, sir? Why did you decide to bring the case in Florida?
All right. There he is. So we had the first footage of him out in the wild this week, too. Where I think CNN was like, look, Jack Smith is walking. And we're
Yeah.
like, ooh, he really exists.
He exists. He's younger than I thought he would be from his picture. He looks so dour and old, but yeah, he's.
A number of people have said that he looks a little Abraham Lincolnish, and I have to say that I don't disagree. There's something. There's something there,
Something there.
So, okay, our first guest tonight is a romance novelist, apparently, a podcaster, a law professor, and author of a book called Big Dirty Money. Jen Taub, how are you? You're on mute. You're on mute is what you are.
You're on mute, Jen.
Hey, just to set the record straight, I'm merely editing
Okay.
Mary Taub's romance novel. I'm not the author.
Okay.
Okay.
How's that? How is that going?
It's super fun. It's nice to enter into this kind of cool alternative reality where you invent a nice man instead of, maybe some of the people out there that we have to talk about today. So it's been
Well,
fun.
welcome to our world of fiction. I don't know that I've ever written. Usually, I've used bad guys, but no. There's some good ones in there. Now that I think about it.
Oh, there are bad guys in this book too. You just have
Oh,
to.
okay, good.
Yeah.
It is fun.
It's been quite 24 hours, right? That's what it's been, a little over that. And seeing Jack Smith in the wild the other day, you try to pick up every detail. He had like a Subway sandwich he was getting for lunch. Did you catch that?
I did not.
Yeah. Whatever.
I had Subway yesterday too.
Yeah, I wonder what that means, right?
I don't know.
I don't know. Something underground? No, I don't think we need to overread that.
Yeah.
Look, he's a very straightforward person. Seems like he's by the book. I would not want to be on his bad side. This is a meticulous investigation. And of course, they don't have to put all their cards on the table. But what's in here, sort of there's like the surface of what it communicates to us. And I think there's a lot in here that's being communicated to other people who might want to cooperate and not find themselves in a position like Walt Nauta. And that's the valet who is a co-defendant in this case. And sort of before kind of getting into what's new here from what we thought was going to be, I just want to underline that point, which is over the past, I don't know, many months, many of us say, yeah, we expect Donald Trump will be indicted at the county level in New York and at Fulton County and the feds. But some of us, including myself, have always doubted that we would put a former president in a public prison. Like I expected the way it would be done, it's never been done here, would be some kind of house arrest because of just, I believe no one is above the law, but I also believe in keeping someone safe.
Yes.
And also the cost and all of that, right?
Yeah.
But Walt Nauta is not Donald Trump. Yeah. And when you look at this indictment and the potential number of years he could serve, now the sentencing guidelines will minimize these, but this document is signaling the outer limit. And for him, when you add all of that up, you get 20 years, 20 years, 20 years, 20 years.
Oh my God,
and 10
he's ruined
years.
his life.
That's like 70 years. That is, he would be, of course, I know that's not what it would be. Maybe it's going to be 12 years or 20 total. It's not going to be 70. It doesn't matter.
Oh, it's only going to be 20. Oh, good.
Well, let me just put it this way. This guy is going to serve hard time.
Yeah, he is.
If after due process, if he is convicted. And that should send a signal to everyone else who if you're hoping that Donald Trump is going to pardon you one day, that means you're thinking he's going to get reelected. That's not going to happen. He's probably going to be the Republican nominee, but he is not going to win the presidency. So anyone who is out there, they're not listening to us right now, but anyone out there who's looking at this indictment, who has been offered an opportunity to cooperate and flip on Donald Trump, this would be the time. And that's why you're seeing, I don't usually see this kind of thing at the end of an indictment where all the years are there. So that's a kind of, to me, that's speaking to it, to an audience of maybe a few who need to see
and
that.
the severity of what they're up against. Yeah. So can you, before we get into other stuff too, I just wanted to ask you about the lawyers in this, because we did get a lot of the information in the Jack Smith. It seems that a lot of the information in the indictment came from piercing that attorney-client privilege. And we remember the sort of battle around all of that. What was that, a year ago or whatever?
Yeah.
So, who's really on the hook? Who's cooperating? How many, we had that saying, make attorneys get attorneys for MAGA. But can you speak a little bit to that? Because I'm a little lost in that conversation that I've been trying to get information.
Yeah. Well, what's good about this is some of these lawyers I've actually seen in a courtroom, because last fall I went to see the special master hearing up in the Eastern District of New York, which is in Brooklyn. Oh. So I actually saw Evan Corcoran. He's one of the guys. So what I can tell is there's 3 attorneys mentioned in here. There's Evan Corcoran, who's attorney 1. There's someone named attorney 2. I don't know who that is, but it's probably Boris Epstein, but I don't know. Oh. And attorney 3 is definitely got to be Christina Bobb.
Yeah.
Okay. And so let me just tell you this I think that Evan Corcoran's cooperating. I think that also Christina Bobb's cooperating. What's interesting, I think, I don't know. Really? Because from the beginning, she got set up and ended up, let me just sort of back up for people who may not be following it. What this sort of, the big picture here of what went down is, as we all know, Donald Trump lost the election. And some stuff happened, which we'll talk, some other time. But he actually did leave Washington, the White House, on January 20th, thank God. And when he did that, he took with him boxes. He directed people to pack up boxes. I don't know if they were all on the plane or they were on trucks. He took boxes that he knew. Is that a ding for me to...
It's me. I'm sorry. It's my ding.
Is it I switched topics though. So he boxes to take with him to Mar-a-Lago. And those boxes he knew contained classified national security information, national defense information and secrets of whatever classifications. And there are tons and tons of boxes that were sent down to Mar-a-Lago. So that's one, and that's in January of 2021. He dragged his feet. The National Archives were saying, hey, you have some stuff we're interested in getting. Some of it because it was like, like the letter from his, love letter from Kim Jong-un, or things that they were interested in keeping for historical purposes, and nothing was coming back. And so it takes about a year. And finally, like in January or February 2022, like a year later, he sends like 15 boxes back. And when the National Archives get these boxes, they open them up and see that either that many of the documents themselves are marked with these things like top secret or SCI, or this coding, as you all know what it is, that indicates that he shouldn't have had it in the first place, but he was no longer president. So then they decide, holy shit, we want more stuff. And they ask for stuff, and they talk to the FBI, who then says, okay, we need a grand jury because what's going on here? And they get a grand jury to send a subpoena. So the prosecutors get a grand jury to send a subpoena to Donald Trump and his lawyers. And it shows up like May 11th, 2022. Okay, so we're talking now about a year ago. Okay. This is where all the hot stuff starts happening right now, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about over a year. This guy has documents. The government's worried that he has them, so much so they want to get this from him. No raid, no search. They just ask nicely, with a subpoena. With a subpoena now, give us this stuff. So instead of going, oh my goodness, I have stuff. That's not it. He's thinking, immediately, Donald Trump, according to this indictment, gets his lawyer, and his lawyer says to his lawyer, like, okay.
And it's Corcoran, I think, right?
Evan Corcoran.
Yeah, attorney one. Yeah.
He's kind of like, well, what would happen if, if documents just kind of disappeared, or, why don't you, I don't remember the order of this, but he like makes this sort of plucking gesture. What if you had these things? It's sort of later in the process. At some point he says, what if this just disappeared, or you took them to your hotel room, or they got waterlogged, like he claims Hillary Clinton stuff got, whatever. So at some point along the way, he's saying that to him. But sort of early on, he makes clear that he doesn't want to cooperate or play ball. Corcoran's like, no, we're going to cooperate and we're going to play ball. So they make a plan that Corcoran's going to come down there. So this is May 11th. He's going to do the search June 2nd. There's some delay in there, and I'm not sure why. In the interim, Donald Trump directs his valet, this guy we've mentioned, Walt Nauta, whose first name is Waltine, and I never knew that was.
That struck me too.
Really struck me as an interesting name, and there might be some reason why he went astray, but there's not. I mean, whatever. I'm sure there's nothing to do with that. But Waltine, like saltine, Walt does Trump's bidding on several occasions. It's like May 23rd, May 25th, like May 30th, and June 1st. He's moving documents from the storage room into the residence. Now, all this is happening, and like 60 boxes get moved into the residence, but only like 20 odd ones get moved back. And then June 2nd, they send Evan Corcoran in there to do the search that Trump is overseeing. He gets a Redwell, which is like a big, reddish envelope, accordion envelope, and puts these things in. And that's when Donald Trump is trying to encourage him to like hide things or destroy them. Now, what we should know, what's important, because people have seen the photographs of these boxes on the stage at Mar-a-Lago, and boxes, as you mentioned earlier, in a very sort of low-rent bathroom with a tacky chandelier and some behind the shower curtain. My sense of it is that stuff was in there prior to May 11th. Like there was a lot of moving things back and forth all the time. Like there was sort of chaos, and it was only when it's my
favorite part of the indictment. It's like, oh these fell out.
And pictures of like pictures on the floor of some of these top secret, like nuclear secrets about foreign governments, like was spilled out wherever. So there was some stuff in a bathroom, and then behind the shower, and some stuff in a place called the Pine Room, and some stuff on the stage in a ballroom, and something in this storage room, and some things in his office and in his bedroom and some other place. Like God knows where this stuff was at any given time. But the key points about the where a lot of the legal trouble comes in is a little bit in that window of time. And then, as we know, when they hand over this Redwell, I think it's like June 3rd or something, or June 4th, right around the time after Corcoran does the search. Corcoran doesn't want his fingerprints on it now. So he talks to Christine, what did I just tell her name was?
Christina
Bob. She signs this certification, but makes him edit it saying, to the best of my knowledge, this is everything, because she's not a complete idiot. Of course, no lawyer even if you trust your client, ever says they know something if they didn't do it themselves. Corcoran gives her to sign it. She signs it. And then they hand that Redweld over. Well, after that, I think the government asked for the surveillance videotape. And they see these pictures, these different dates of like Walt Nauta and somebody else going in and out of this room. And it's like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And so then they realize, holy shit, like either they had a witness on the inside by then or they just don't trust anybody. And that's when they get the search warrant. And that's why the raid happens in August. And that's when they end up with hundreds of more documents. And that's why we get the indictment.
Thank you for that timeline is good. Oh, go ahead. You were finish your thought.
Yeah. I mean, I think, we can get into what the actual crimes were, but in terms of the lawyers, just back to those two lawyers, where there's just so much, I mean, there's so much going on there that goes to the kinds of obstructive acts and, facilitate, scheme to cover something up, and to cause someone to lie in these documents. But, I do think that what I question is Corcoran was pressured by Trump and he didn't destroy documents, but he was pressured by him. And this happened, we know in the summer of 2022, but he was still showing up in court representing his client in like late September. So maybe he just thought, well, yeah, Donald Trump was just talking a big game, but I got him under control. But
or maybe
he
was cooperating,
already.
I don't know. Here's what I think is important to like. There's something to note here that is important, and it's about the culture around Donald and how he just corrupts everyone around him, attorneys, anyone, and why things like not bringing consequences when people in Trump world didn't show up for congressional subpoenas and face no consequences for that matter. So to me, there's a context here that's just a natural progression. And we saw it when he was in office, just breaking norms. You could tell right away. It was like, well, is it illegal? Well, then I'll do it. Everyone's like, no, but we don't do that. Well, but is it illegal? No. Well, then I'll do it. Right.
But even it was, the answer is what it, you can't.
But I'm just talking.
Yeah, you're right. Even on the legal.
This is the freight train.
You're talking about the pushing people into
this is the
corrupt.
freight train of how how he enculturated everybody.
Yes.
This was part of being in his crime family. Any boss of any crime family, they set the culture.
Yes.
And so he set the culture of, if you think there's going to be a bad consequence, question whether it really is. If it's a norm, break it. If you want what you want. And to the point to where just him proving and the people around him proving in his world that were there to defend him that you don't even have to show up for a congressional subpoena. Just don't show up. What are they going to do? Come arrest us? Is Nancy Pelosi going to clear out the jail cell in Congress and stick you in the jail cell? And they just constantly did that. And of course, no, she wasn't. And, okay, well, are they going to refer to the Department of Justice? Is the Department of Justice going to do anything? I think Bannon, what was just Bannon, right? Merrick Garland, he's still free. He's free ranging it out there, right? He's like, in terms of radicalizing, he's raw dogging it. He's like, there's no guardrail on that guy. There's no protecting, him from just inseminating everybody with his ideas, right? So there's no consequences. So this is what he's always done and what he's learned how to do and what everyone around him learned how to do because of him. It was almost like that was the whole red pilling, blue pill matrix thing of like, come behind the magic curtain and you'll see you don't have to do any of this, to the point to where when it's actual crimes under the Espionage Act, he's thinking and getting his attorneys to say, well, just don't show up. Just don't give it to him. And went until he found someone like Cass Patel to say, actually, you declassified it all because you're president and you have those kind of incredible powers. Okay, great. Then that's what happened. I'll tell everybody that. I just thought about it and they're declassified. They're mine. And so it's now finally hit the wall where there's consequences. But all along the way, all those people learned from him. It's not that they were enabling him. He was mentoring them.
Yep.
He was bringing them along in his way of being as a criminal, and he learned it from Roy Cohn. I mean, it's like, this is the criminal path of of mafiosos,
And
not just any criminal.
I mean, you're totally right, because once people are pushed to that limit, then it's sort of like, well, what can they prove?
Yeah.
And that's sort of like where, where all of his lawyers are like, well, due process matters. So, it doesn't, or what they learned, which it does, but what they learned, who was it that testified? Corey Lewandowski, when he was before Congress, he's like, I don't have to tell the truth unless I'm under oath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does it matter? It's the same thing. It's like, I have a friend. I'm like, I still think he's going to flee. And it's like, well, no, he can't do that. Why can't he do that? They're watching him. Well, okay. What does that mean? What are they going to do? He's got a private plane. He's got a pilot. What are they? Like someone on the plane is going to tackle the pilot if the pilot just all of a sudden steers the plane to the UAE? What are they going to do? They're going to shoot down the plane? Don't think he's not doing this in his head and with everybody else. Well, what are they going to do? How are they going to stop me?
Right.
What does it matter? What?
Yeah.
So
and
what?
where could he live the lifestyle he wants to live?
Yeah, or I'll just go here and then I'll be fine there. And like, what are they going to do?
See, the problem with that is he doesn't want to live anywhere else. He only goes 3 places. He's in Mar-a-Lago, he's at Bedminster, and he's at Trump Tower. He doesn't want to be anywhere else. They don't cook the eggs right. The ketchup's off.
Does he own anything abroad that he actually?
He doesn't go anywhere.
Look, he doesn't own any of that. He didn't even own Trump Tower. I don't know why.
Not even Scotland wants him.
No. Can we
look? This is why it's house arrest isn't what should be on the table.
Yeah,
because
it has to be punitive. He'd be fine being let's go to the omelet station until you die. All right, he was going to do that anyway.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the timeline for 1 second because I think it was very helpful to do the timeline. The subpoena comes down on May 11th of 2022. The search is on June 2nd. Trump delays, and this is in the indictment, he delays going north for the summer until I think after the search, which is I think it's on the 7th that he goes north. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then the FBI raid is in August. What happens in late July is that the Live Golf tournament is held at Bedminster.
Right.
Okay. So he's got these fucking documents with him, and the
forgot to mention,
Saudis are there
you
with the
brought-
big fucking golf bags that are going to go back there. That's all I'm saying.
You make such a good point. I heard you before that there was one thing. God, it's so funny. It's obviously because of the grammar she uses. Obviously, Melania, they say it's a family member, and I think we can do a dramatic.
Well, he calls her ma'am. He calls her ma'am. So
do you want to do I really want to do a dramatic reading of that?
Oh,
let's do it.
Let's do it. Then we got then we'll bring in our next guest.
Okay. We'll bring in our next guest. Let's do the dramatic reading. Hang on.
Where are we? What page is that?
What page? I'll find it.
It's towards the end, I think.
Oh, I got it. It's page 23. Jen? Page 23.
23.
Paragraph. Who do you want to be?
Well, who can do the accent?
I can't, so it's you.
All right. Is it you and me? Are we doing this?
I don't mind being.
I think Greg should be Walt.
Okay. Okay.
I'll set it up. I'll be the narrator.
I'll listen. It's just, okay.
I'll
be
set
Melania.
You guys up.
Okay.
I'll do the 2 paragraphs before, and then you guys be Walt and Melania.
I might not do an accent because that's insulting, maybe to people.
Hey, I have an idea.
Who have good accents?
You do Walt.
You do Walt. Greg will do Melania.
Okay, I like it.
Okay, we'll be fluid.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. On May 30th, 2022 at 9:08 a.m., Trump and Nauta, that's Walt, spoke by phone for approximately 30 seconds. Between 10:02 a.m. and 11:51 a.m., Nauta removed a total of approximately 50 boxes from the storage room. On that same day, everyone, at 12:33 p.m., so just half an hour after they moved the boxes, 40 minutes, a Trump family member texted Nauta.
Good afternoon, Walt. Happy Memorial Day. I saw you put boxes to POTUS room. Just FYI, and I will tell him as well. Not sure how many he wants to take on Friday on plane. We will not have room for them. Plane will be full with luggage. Thank you.
Nauta replied,
Good afternoon, ma'am. Smiley face emoji. Thank you so much. I think he wanted to pick from them. I don't imagine him wanting to take the boxes. He told me to put them in the room and that he was going to talk to you about them.
On June 1st, 2022, beginning at 12:52 p.m., Nauta removed approximately 11 boxes from the storage room. So I think they went on the plane, guys.
Well, but they didn't
not
just
50.
go on the plane. Wait. The key line here is I think he wanted to pick from them. He was pulling orders. Right. He was like an Amazon warehouse guy. before he got on that plane a few weeks before he met the Saudis at the fucking bullshit golf tournament. That's it. That's all I'm saying. I think we have to investigate this horrible golf tournament that's bought our American golf tournament.
Timeline. When did Ivana die?
I in that time period also, I believe.
No.
In that time period.
No. I'm not going to go there because that's nutsy woohoo. But
hang on, I'm going to look it up.
That is the icing on the cake. Okay.
July 14th.
Yeah, right there. It's right
there. Oh man, I hate it. I hate it. I'm not doing that. I'm not.
No.
Bastille Day.
If it turns out that they have to dig up that grave and they find stuff there, I don't even know what. I think that the simulation's broken and we should all just
okay. I'll make you a deal, Greg. I'll make you and Stephanie a deal. If there's actually documentation or evidence that they dig up, I will come visit you and we'll do the show live.
Okay, let's do it.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Because it's not going to happen. I'm very busy, but I would do that just to celebrate.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
She had a long relationship, very long, with Adnan Khashoggi. Just so everybody knows that.
Who bought the plaza from Donald, right?
No, that went through Tom Barrack and that group. Yeah. But Donald bought Adnan's yacht.
Oh, I thought he bought he bought
Donald
the yacht?
and Ivana bought Adnan Khashoggi's yacht, which I happen to know was wired to the gills. I had a source tell me about that. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. She has waited long enough. Our next guest.
Long enough. All right. Our next guest.
Our next guest is a novelist, short story writer, journalist, war correspondent, and now documentarian. There's a new documentary called Eastern Front with John Sweeney. Zarina Zabrisky, welcome back. How are you? You are also on mute.
Okay, you're mute. There we go.
No, not anymore.
Okay. Good.
And I don't even have to fake the accent. You wanted an accent? Here I am.
I know.
I was going to say, I'm doing this, and I'm like, we should have waited until Zarina came. Can you do like a specific?
No problem.
Can you do a Slovenian one?
No, you see, I don't try to speak with accent. That's how I naturally speak.
I mean, I speak with an accent when I'm speaking any other language. So there's that.
There's that.
Well, this happens to be kind of my language, but let's not go in there. That's like the whole linguistic area, and we don't have time to talk about it, and attention spans are short. So we'll leave the linguistics and literature to another time.
Another show. All right.
Another show, another time. So, okay. So tell us about the movie, because this is exciting, because you're back in the States, and you're back in the States promoting this documentary, which we're all very excited about. So tell us a little bit about making it. What is it? We have a clip of it that we're going to show, but why don't you set it up a little bit before we do that?
I will, although I would love to be excited, and I would love to say that it's exciting, but the subject is not exciting.
Yeah,
and so unfortunately, I don't want to be a party pooper. I'm just generally a, pretty jolly person, but the subject is so not jolly that even I, being partially from Odessa and now based in Odessa, have hard time jumping right into the fun part of it. There are some very hopeful, joyous, and moving parts, and bright and light parts in the movie. I won't lie, but I also won't lie that it's somewhat disturbing, because the war is disturbing.
Yeah.
And what I found out after 15 months at war, that coming back to peace is much harder than being at war. I'm much happier there, because there I'm surrounded by the people who are experiencing the same. So there we can joke and laugh, and it doesn't feel sacrilegious. And here, again, not to be a party pooper, but it's nighttime in Ukraine, and just a few hours, 3 people were killed in Odessa by the debris that fell from the drones that were shot at Odessa. And overall 10, I think, were injured. And I know the count will go up as the morning arrives. It always does. And the drones are flying at Kyiv right now as we speak. And also you might have heard about a dam in Kherson. And the city of Kherson, which I know and love and spend a lot of time there and have a lot of friends there, is now being flooded. And for now, there are about 10 people reported dead, but the water didn't go down yet. And what we do know, that when the water goes down, especially on the side that is captured by the Russians, there will be many, many, many bodies. And there's also environment and pets and all kind of animals. What is the connection with the film? Well, part of the film is set in Kherson. So you will see that area right by the river that everybody's talking about. And it's a very dangerous area because even the rescuers now are being shot at as they're rescuing. And I have friends who are doing it right now. And as they're doing it, they are under fire because the Russians are just across the river, and even the snipers can reach out. And I've been there, and they were trying to shoot at us. I was there under fire, so I know exactly what it is. But they still have to rescue people and animals, which they do a lot. Otherwise, all these living creatures will die. So this movie, you know, it's the one that kind of keeps living its own life, because ever since we shot it, which was only 2 months ago, so many events happened to the people in the movie, because in it we speak to a lot of Ukrainian people. That the main character of the film is the Ukrainian people. You know, like everybody talks about Ukrainian spirit. There you get the opportunity to actually experience it. And our director, Kalen Robertson, is amazing. He actually did an amazing job under fire, like drowning in mud with a camera, but he really brings it. You could see it, you could feel it. You feel as if you are there. I don't know how he did it. It was very hard. But since then, you know, it's that kind of movie when I have the screener and I'm reaching out to the people who contributed to the film. And I first ask, how are you doing? And I'm asking this one woman in Donbass who's very cheerful, lovely woman. They were building a community center when we were there for refugees. And she goes, well, my husband was killed, so it's just me and my son now. Another character in the movie, not a character, but the person who will visit to follow up on investigation, because we are on investigative journalistic road trip kind of there. So we visit him in Kherson by the Dnipro River. And I'm not going to give it away, but you'll see what happens there. And so right now I'm online with him constantly these days because he's still there. And he is rescuing his fellow residents on a boat. So I was trying to raise money and send him some money that we could raise here so he can buy a boat, because it's very hard to get a boat, and that's the only way you can travel in a certain part of Kherson at the region. Or there's some good developments. There's one instance where this Ukrainian military gives me a video, and that's where the investigation starts of a war crime. And so he is near Bakhmut. Bakhmut is the hottest spot of the front, was for a while, for 9 months or so. And he's luckily still alive, which is amazing, knowing the situation there, haven't been there. And he was awarded by Zelensky with the Courage Medal. And he was very happy and proud and sent it to me and so forth. So, you know, everything continues. It didn't stop. It's not like we went there and shot something and voila, done, you know, everybody claps, have some champagne and move on. No, it's happening as we speak. I don't know how many people in these movies will still be alive by the time that the war is over. So why do I think people need to disturb themselves and bother to see something that depressing? I think because we are very cushioned here. We're in a bubble, in a somewhat artificial world, which has very little to do with the reality, or at least with the reality in other parts of the world. And the conversations that I hear here in the streets, in the store, people who I occasionally see because I'm here to sell my apartment and move back to Ukraine, they seem to be unreal to me. I can't believe that people actually speak about these things. And I understand that life continues. And I know that everybody, just because there's war in some countries, don't need to abandon everything they are doing and stop living. Everybody deserves to be happy. And that's how Ukrainians want to be too. But I think everybody decides for themselves how connected they want to be to the outside world. It's like in John Donne's poem, like for whom the bell tolls, tolls for everyone. And everybody chooses that. And it's okay to choose to be not relating to this at all. There are plenty of people, and I'm not judging anyone. But my goal as a writer, first of all, and as a reporter, and in this instance, as a circumstantial filmmaker, I wasn't planning to be in the film, but it happened, and it's a good medium, is to connect these seemingly completely torn apart worlds that when you start thinking about how different they are, it can drive you crazy. And why? And here we get back to politics, because it could be very well our reality if Donald Trump wins, because Donald Trump works and has been working and been recruited by the KGB long before Putin came to power.
Yeah.
So that's how the world comes together. It's like the pieces of the puzzle. And all of us have been writing about it for years.
Yeah.
I started to write about Donald Trump way before I started to report on the
2015, 2016. Yeah, you started.
Right.
I mean, the story of Donald's presidency is the story of Ukraine.
Yes, it's connected.
It started with the peace plans, right? At the campaign, at the sort of when he was becoming the nominee.
At the RNC to change the platform.
The RNC to change the platform. Ryan and McCarthy getting recorded. We keep bringing that recording up, everybody, about the there's two people Putin pays, and everyone pays attention to that soundbite. But the whole context, again, context being important, of them having that conversation was they had just come back from seeing the kinds of the propaganda operation and machine the Kremlin had put in place to subvert Ukraine and to cause war there back when Paul Manafort was running Yanukovych's campaign and running his thing. The same guy that ended up freely giving his services to Donald Trump as campaign manager at that very time, was campaign manager when Ryan and McCarthy were talking about this. So the whole presidency is about Ukraine from start to end, because he's a Kremlin operative, and that's why he was in there. So that's why I think for you, and I'll say that, I will boldly say that there's so much evidence of that. It's not even a question. It's just a joke to deny this at this point. So I'm very pleased that you're on here with us tonight, because I think it's, even though we had planned this before the indictment dropped, it's so appropriate to have a voice of Ukraine in the show tonight. That being said, let's play that. I want to play that clip. I want everyone to be able to see the trailer.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's get out of this city.
Let's just not drive while it's going mental, mate. Get yourself down.
Is it going to get closer?
I don't know, Callum. We'll just wait and see now. What have I said about the best place to be in any situation is on the ground, mate. If you're in a car, if you're driving, if you're running, you're high. Where's Zarina?
She's right there, but she'll come in the car. Zarina, let's get in the car. We're going to drive out now before it happens again. So Byline TV have been in Ukraine for a while now, and recently we've been doing reports for Byline TV about some of the war crimes that are going on here, some of the stuff that's been inflicted on civilians. Zarina told us a few hours ago that there was an attack in a town called Konstantinivka, just down the road. and we went to go and investigate it, see what happened there, see if there were civilians, and we ended up coming under massive fire. I don't know exactly what kind of fire it was. Paul probably knows more about exactly what that was, but it was extremely intense.
Yeah, well, it was. I mean, I'd say two things on the artillery front. It was quite close, between 100 to 50 meters away, something on that lines. Possibly grads, possibly something with multiple charges like cluster munitions. Difficult to tell because of the echo effect, because we're in an urban built-up area. But we just got out the car, got low as we'd all trained to do. Zarina got behind a tree with a guy who just witnessed one attack, and we just waited for it to pass, really. Then got in the car and got the hell out of there as fast as we can, as you should do. And thankfully that's a nice option we have, not an option everyone has.
And we are lucky that we can pack and go. We're here to report. People in Ukraine have to live like this, and not just in eastern Ukraine, but also in Kherson, in the south, all over, everywhere, wherever there is an attack. And it's just simply really, really scary. And we know that yesterday the residential building was hit in Kramatorsk with casualties. And today I'm just getting the news of what was going on in Konstantinovka. It's still going on. And there are photographs of residential buildings being damaged, buildings on fire, which is terrible.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Zarina. That's intense.
Yeah, well, this is not, the second part is not the part of the film. This is the Byline TV reportage. And I just want to remark, so this is, you see myself, Kaylin Robertson, who's the director, and Paul Conroy, who's a legendary war correspondent. He was a war photographer with Marie Colvin, who is the a legend, right?
Yeah, wow.
When she was killed in 2012, Paul was there and he was mortally injured. There's a film that I also recommend. It's online. It's called The Private War with Annie Lennox music. So it's about Paul and Marie. And so Paul has survived. And
I didn't know that was Paul.
That's Paul. And
Wow.
I'm very lucky because, I was holding Marie's book with me this whole year and reading. There was the only one book that I've been reading, and also Luke Hardin's later. But the whole year I've been reading Marie's book of essays. And then suddenly I ran into Paul in Kiev. And next thing I know, we are working on the crew, and another person who's the narrator and one of the leading journalist is John Sweeney, who is also a legend. And you guys gonna like it because he made Trump run away from him twice and Putin ran away from him one time. So this guy, he can make anyone run away from him.
So tell us where, there they go. Tell us where the film is in Southern California right now. Can you give us the dates?
Right, of course. I invite everybody to the premieres. The world premiere was in Kiev. It was a big success with a lot of critics there. And so on the 14th, we have simultaneous premiere in London. It's already sold out on Leicester Square and Prince Charles Cinema. So no more tickets. We still have some tickets in Hollywood, and it's East Hollywood, and it's called Skip Town Playhouse on Melrose.
Okay.
You can find it on my Twitter. I will be sharing. You can just Google Eastern Front Los Angeles and you find it. And then we'll probably end up, I don't think I'll have it in me before I go back to Ukraine to do anything, but San Francisco premiere, which is on the 19th of June. And it's a bigger theater, so we still have plenty of tickets left there. It's in Chinatown, iconic theater, the oldest one in Chinatown. I actually performed there a long time ago, which seems to be ages. In 2014, we did the literary theater musical, completely different, saying no politics. It was so beautiful, but it won't be this time. This time it will be premiere. And both times I will be doing Q&A. In a late will be with Heidi Kuda, who also writes for Byline Time. And in San Francisco, it will be with Alexandra Kostulos, who is the director and founder of San Francisco Creative Writing Institute.
Wonderful. All right. So June 14th in Los Angeles, and June 20th in San Francisco.
June 19th.
June 19th in San Francisco. Sorry. In San Fran. Okay. I love it. All right.
And
So
may I just add on a
Yes.
Trump note?
Please do.
You know, like we touched upon Manafort and Yanukovych and all this, and I'm not gonna like drown people in names, but if anybody wants to see the background, I have like one of the major research works I did way there before the election, which shows Trump's, with evidence, Trump's 30 years of collaboration. So just go on my tweet. It's a pinned tweet that has been there forever, and it leads to the work that shows how it happened, how it was happening, the practices. And I think everybody should read something like that, not necessarily mine, but the work that shows how the Kremlin recruited Trump, and then everything else that comes on top, boxes, no boxes, scatological, references, with no need for that. This is the Kremlin spy. Do we want him in the White House?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all did it. We all did it. Now, Jen, we're gonna that's a great pivot into our last topic. Does anyone else have an announcement they want to make?
I got to put the banner back up. We have the after show. We have the after hours after this. We'll share the link to that.
Yeah.
For anybody that's a member,
welcome to join us there too. We just keep going on, but it's for our members only. What else we got, Greg?
There's stuff for next week. There's going to be stuff for next week.
Okay.
I'm just teasing a couple of things that might be ready next week that are not quite ready yet, but might be ready for next week.
What's
that
that?
are 5/8 related, possibly related to, something.
Okay, there's some stuff. We got
things are in the works.
In the works.
Things are in the works.
Jen Taub, do you have any announcements? Anything going on? This is our announcement section.
Oh, I love it.
You've got your book?
So I started, as you all know, a podcast called Booked Up. Yeah. And it's on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And speaking of Ukraine, I had Luke Harding on a few weeks ago, and he was a really fantastic guest. So, and it's all nonfiction writers, and I really need to have you on, LB, because I consider you a nonfiction writer. You are, and it doesn't matter to me that you do your work unbound. I think it's really exciting, and I would love to have you on to talk about The World Beneath at some point. But we drop an episode every Sunday, and again, it's Booked Up with Jen Taub.
Okay, great. Zarina also nonfiction and fiction.
Zarina can do everything.
Zarina does it all. We love it.
Yes.
All right, so let's pivot into our end segment here. I'm going to put the timer on for us. We can ignore it.
It is our prerogative. It's our prerogative to ignore.
But I want to let's get into dirty money. Let's get into what it actually is, what they will find when they read. It's yes, Kremlin spy. But let's start with Jen, if we don't mind. We'll start with you. Let's talk about money laundering and and we'll get to where that intersects with Russian organized crime, and where Russian organized crime is just an adjunct of the security services in the former Soviet Union. So
I mean, I think we can talk about and date back to we date it back, I think, to the rise of a computing power, right? I mean, the minute you get into the 70s when suddenly and you're off the gold standard and all kinds of financial assets can be traded with the push of a button, that creates the opportunity first for a lot more money laundering than there was before. And when we talk about money laundering, I think we're just talking about finding ways to bring the proceeds of illegitimate activity into the legitimate marketplace in order to disguise its provenance. Is that a way to say it?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Where it came from. And the way that the link between Russia and money laundering arises from the breakup of the Soviet Union, as you're talking about, when there was a need to, you can't, this, Stiglitz talks a lot about this, and Globalization is Discontent's a book, I think, from way back in the late 90s, I'm thinking that, if you don't sequence things right, and if you go from a centralized command and control sort of economy, state-controlled economy, into a market, you're not going to suddenly have everyone setting up lemonade stands, and professional offices. Immediately the way this was all this kind of, I'm going to make a long story short, I guess, which is eventually these businesses that were state-owned ended up in the hands of oligarchs. And consolidated. And then, of course, when Putin rises to power, he knows that he both needs the rich elites, but they need him. And so, there's some payola. So this happens in, in any kind of corrupt government structure. There are people who have controlled the means and the results of production, and now you're going to get them. They're not legitimately supposed to be stealing and shaking down money from the oligarchs. But the oligarchs aren't supposed to be involved in bribery and taking too much of the country's wealth. So what do? They want to get their money out of the country, and they want to hide it across the world. And as anyone who pays attention to what Stephanie does with this, I mean, she dates it back to Al Capone and so on. But it's not just Switzerland anymore. It includes Jersey, which is a crown dependency. Anywhere you can stuff money and hide it, that's where the Russian oligarchs do. And no one really gave a shit about this, excuse my French, until, the most recent, the escalation of Russia's war in Ukraine back in 2022. All of a sudden, everyone gets on their high horse, including the U.S., and suddenly starts enforcing sanctions, sort of, right, against these oligarchs. I don't know if I helped.
No,
this,
you did it. I think
the Donald Trump piece of it, obviously,
Yeah.
he's heavily involved in money laundering, allegedly, but we know that his casino entered into a settlement related to money laundering that transpired while he was still running the place. So
That's right. He couldn't open up casinos in Australia and other places. That he was prevented of that because of his money laundering track record. So there's not a dispute that he was a money launderer. It's whether that laundering was illegal. And then that's like a trick that people don't, it's like your brain starts to snap. It's like, what do you mean it could be legal to do this? And again, it's back to that original theme with this guy, with this indictment. It's just, can I get caught? It doesn't matter. Is anybody kind of coming? Why don't I just do this? And then let's see what happens. And if I get caught, then I'll just throw them whatever name I need to throw them or whatever kind of information I hand over so I can get out of being caught. Like it's just
a civil settlement. They can't prove I did it intentionally. I'll just pay
all
somebody.
that kind of yeah. So he's always been that way. I think the thing about, I just want to hit on Jersey for a second because we'll ask our friend Stuart Survey to come back on at some point.
Yeah.
The UK was, and again, Jersey's not part of the UK. It's just a crown dependency, meaning it's owned by the monarch and kind of controlled by that. It's just this weird kind of territory. But that region, that is where the flight capital went first from Russia, a huge amount of it. It went everywhere. It was so much money they had to get out of there and get into the company. But it was Bob Levinson who warned everybody about what was coming. And he did this in the mid 90s. He was actually, I think that documentary came out in the late 90s that he did with Pandora, but it's coming. And the money that's coming is attached to organized crime, to the worst mafiosos on the planet. It's not like American mafiosos. Yes, I can track money laundering back to its origins. And it is an organized crime, but you can't as brutal as Al Capone was and as brutal as Meyer was, that doesn't even come close to comparing to a character like Mogilevich, who comes from Ukraine, when it was all part of the Soviet Union, and the crime lords around him and around Putin, who they installed him, right? What they're willing to do and go to, and the kinds of things that they're involved in terms of mass misery and real depravity for profit. They have the power of an intelligence service behind them. So everyone can imagine if Donald were to get back in, this gets fully corrupted. And he was able to get those. It's my stuff, right? Those are my boxes. It's my papers. Those are our secrets. That's the power of those intelligence agencies, which is why in the indictment it lists the capabilities of each one of those intelligence agencies. This is what the Department of Defense is capable of. This is what signal intelligence, the NSA is capable of. The CIA is capable of. He made sure in every paragraph, everybody read that indictment and go and read the paragraphs. They're noting specifically in there the powers of and the precariousness of those particular agencies when it comes to that product being in the hands of someone, anyone in an unsecure facility, and what they might do with that. So that if he had that, that's how powerful each one of those agencies are. Now imagine a crime lord having that kind of power behind them. That's the thing to get, is you don't want a mobster having the power of the most powerful intelligence agencies on the planet to wield at his will. That's what Russia is. They used the KGB, the Kremlin, they had incredible, better at human intelligence than anybody ever, right? They were better at that shit, right? But they also were incredible with signal intelligence in ways that we didn't even understand. And certainly as we've gotten into the era of computing, as you brought up, Jen, as we've gotten into the signals, right? The kinds of fuckery these people and the kinds of misery. Then they had the military, this falling apart military, but my God, the power of that, those resources behind them to go into Syria and do things like have wars where journalists are dying in the rubble, trying to stay and protect civilians that are hiding out in that building, like what happened to Marie. So this is the real world that Zarina's trying to talk about. This is the threat and the danger. Zarina, I want to pass it to you then. Anything you want to say about Russian security services being it's the other way around. It's not like the mafia is an arm of the Russian security services. It's what happened was Russian security services became the tools and the arm of the mafia.
No, not exactly.
Disagree. Yes, please.
It's actually the same thing. They fused in the beginning of the 90s, and I was right there. I mean, I come from St. Petersburg, Russia. I come from Putin's town. I actually worked for his predecessor in the mayor's office. It can come much closer than that. It's disgusting. It's terrible, but it's an advantage to me as a journalist. I know a lot of things that other people don't know, and I have experienced things that other people haven't, even people from Russia with a Russian background who are not from that time. It was a very particular time in the 90s, this transition. And I was very young, but I worked at the time it was a glorified secretary. I was director of some international relationship or other. But I've seen how it was done. I've seen how the KGB officers at the time, they were still not FSB, I believe, would arrive to the foreign businessmen to extort what was called krysha, which is has double meaning. It's a protection that say the Kremlin now provides to Trump, or the Kremlin provided to Yanukovych. That's protection that's called krysha, or that any bandit provides to a smaller bandit, right? But it's also the word krysha stands for the money that this smaller bandit is paying to the bigger one. And that's the core to understanding how this whole system works. And
it's called a tribute in American mafia.
It's not exactly the same, because there's this thing called общак, which is a communal fund. So the money that oligarchs have do not belong to oligarchs. That's where the difference is with the Italian mafia, American mafia, because there's a sense of propriety here in the former capitalist world, right? Imperialistic world. That's a former communist world. It's such a mess, because they come from this thief mentality. There's a Mark Galliotti book, which is good on that, called The Thieves, and Luke Carden's book, Collusion. So I recommend these books. And they both describe, and I have multiple articles on the Byline Time and on my Medium, which explain how it works with translation from the leading bloggers, their investigative journalists, how it fused together, the military, the KGB, the church, and bandits
yeah,
who
the
became
church. Don't forget the church. Yeah.
And so that's the power apparatus, which kind of became this one terrible monster that we see now as the Kremlin. And you can't take one away from the other. And it's all, the foundation is the money, this общак, this communal money. And then it all built up vertically with this protection money of the Krisha. So everybody reports to them. And that's why oligarchs, even if they launder the money, it's not their money and they could be killed at any time. And we all heard about oligarchs falling out of the windows and, on bananas, sleeping in the saunas and so forth. And that's because they're basically like medieval vassals. And so their property is not their property. And it's a very basic, like concept, but it's important to understand it. It's not, here it would be different. Say if Trump comes to power, there still would be some separation, like a church and the state. There would be separation of, say, FBI and CIA or Pentagon and the White House, because it's intrinsic to the system. But over there, it's mixed up. You can't take one and not take the other. And that's the difference. So it's not exactly the same. It's a worse mess. And when you go to, what's his name, Bob Levinson, it's a very interesting connection right there. And everybody always talks about Mogilevich, and I feel that he became some sort of a folk character,
Yeah, like a boogeyman. Yeah.
Boogeyman, you tell, your child.
Yeah, I agree. I think he was also an asset for, I think he was like,
because there are myths that we as journalists have created, we simplified it and boiled it down to some, Manafort say more, but there are other figures and they are much more dangerous, or were much more dangerous, and there's some that we've never heard about, and these are the guys to be afraid of. Like going back in the 90s, there was a figure called Boris, and
Zarina, you're breaking up a little bit.
Can you?
You went out right when you were saying some very interesting names.
That's what happens. It's always what happens
with our grammar. No, you're just sort of frozen. We can try to hear you.
I don't know what to do. I'm going to
wait. Go log off quick and log back in again. I think we'll be okay, because I'm going to comment on something that you said, which is, it's interesting, this idea of the fusion of all of these things together that she brought up, and how there's the blur in Russia. But as Zarina said, we don't have that here because there is separation. It's interesting to me that what the Republicans are trying to do now, what the Leonard Leo fascists are trying to do now, what the Supreme Court is trying to do now, is blur all these distinctions. They want to eradicate the difference between church and state. They want to fuse all of this stuff together. And because they want us to be like fucking Russia. That's what they want, they want to be oligarchs, They
do. They want their own yachts. I'm sorry. They do.
We were talking about this before, LB, before we came on the show, about the Paul Ryan and these guys in 2015 talking about Ukraine. And, what do they want? Paul Ryan wants to take away Social Security. He used to just have fun, get drunk and fantasize about it in college, which is a weird fetish, but whatever. He, as soon as he left office, as you said to me, LB, he just chased the money and went right to Rupert Murdoch at Fox. He's like he's Tom Wambsgans. What do we say about Tom Wambsgans? What does Shiv say about him? What does he do to the biggest? I'm not going to say it.
You're so servile.
Yeah, no, that's not the line I had in mind. But she's back. Okay, she's back. I forgot I have to put her on again. Okay, Zarina, you were saying you were naming names.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's not the Kremlin interfering, but let's try once again.
Okay, let's try.
So there was this character named Boris Bernstein, and so much goes back to him, to the 90s, and his career started like.
Are you talking about Boris Bernstein?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I tried to get an interview with him.
Yeah,
I was on the hunt for Boris for a while.
Yeah, I don't think
still alive, Zarina.
I think he's still alive. I
think he
have
is
not
too.
heard that he's dead. I think he was alive a few years ago, unless, but he's keeping a very low profile.
He
was
sure is.
He was the father-in-law of
Alex.
Alex, who was
Oh, we're
a
losing her
partner.
again. Trump's partner, and we're losing you again. So he's the father-in-law. Boris Berstein's the father-in-law of Trump's partner in Trump Toronto,
In
but also
Toronto,
other
in
development.
Toronto.
And CBACO, they
Yes.
were part of CBACO,
Yes.
which is an anagram.
Yes.
They're all
Yes.
anagrams. Yeah.
Yes, and he was very involved in Ukraine. He has installed
Yes.
some previous presidents there. And I just give him as an example of somebody who you recognize, and you guys like, oh yeah, Bernstein, we heard about them. But most people don't. But there are many, many people like that. And we don't know anything about. They use people like Prigozhin for this free circus, like a freak show, to entertain and to run this political theater. But the people who really run the show are behind. We don't see them.
Yeah.
It's like that with the right-wing groups here too. I think like, we say Mogilevich as sort of a metonym for all of these organized crime figures, in the way people are like, oh, it's just the Koch brothers. Even though there's only one Koch brother left alive, but that's sort of an umbrella term for all of it. But they're not as powerful as probably other people we don't know about, and have voluntarily, according to the Evil Geniuses book by Kurt Anderson, sort of stepped into the fore and taken the heat, off other people in a way that.
Well, I want to give a little bit on Boris, because Zarina's popping it out, but just so the audience gets it, if you guys didn't read what we did for Sitjourno or listen to stuff, or look at Bob Levinson's work, or read Missing Man, which was a pretty good book by Barry Meyer on him. It's like strange, but I think what he was able to get into that book is very interesting. So Bernstein was the person who arranged a meeting of all heads of the crimes families with Mogilevich in Israel in 1995. And there were 5 different intelligence agencies that were spying on that and wrote a big report of it. And Russia was one of them at the time, actually. We cooperated with them. The relations were much better. It was pre-Putin, and it was our FBI that was working with them. So, and Bob, I think, was part of all that then, and tracking Bernstein. And then Bernstein was also Bob's source as he was trying to hunt down what looked like he was hunting down Mogilevich, because he was running after counterfeit cigarettes for the CIA FinCEN group when it came to terror networks, as they're trying to hunt down Osama bin Laden and all the terror networks after 9/11. Bob was on track in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, of his leads. He'd gone into corporate intelligence, working for Philip Morris, because counterfeit cigarettes is actually quite a big business and quite a big thing. And so he's able to get contracts from there. And also, interesting enough for everybody, George Soros also employed him in tracking down these corrupt mobsters out of the former Soviet Union, with Mogilevich being the one that Bob Levinson had a specialty in, and everybody knew he was the Mogilevich hunter. So Bernstein is who led Bob on that goose hunt and through his contacts and his sources, because Bob was talking to him, and Bob was following up. I did get this from a source. Bob was following up on people connected to Donald Trump, which was very interesting. And this is, again, way before Trump presidency or anything. He just knew that Trump was laundering for these very shady Russian figures. And so Bernstein led him. He's the one that led him and his source to Kish, Iran, where Bob was taken and then became the longest held U.S. captive in history. And he was during Donald Trump's presidency, Trump declared him deceased. We never found him or recovered him. His family still, I think they accept that, but it's a horrific tale of a really brilliant, patriotic guy who was helping at that time our nation state intelligence agencies in tracking down the dirty money that was behind the terror networks, which happened to be Semyon's money. And Boris Bernstein led him right into that trap, and then denied, and then was concerned and wanted to try to find him, and freaked out a little bit. And then we didn't hear from him again. He can't get a visa to the United States. He wanted one for years, and I think we're still denying him. As far as I know, he's in Canada. He's still in Canada.
Yeah.
With Alex Nader. Yeah. His daughter Alex married his daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. And he also, Birstein, was arranging for an American visa for Deripaska.
Yes.
Yes, and and he managed for that. Actually, the Americans flew him to Washington. He was having negotiations in Pentagon, I believe, or somewhere, something surreal. So all of this is like very good nonfiction book,
It's
by
great.
I
It's-
think wasn't
it's
this
the
in
same characters?
Didn't the author who wrote the book Kleptopia write about him?
Probably. I didn't read that book.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
remembering it. Yeah.
Luke wrote about him a little bit. I don't know if he wrote about Levinson, but he wrote about the folks kind of hunting around that in A Very Expensive Poison, because Litvinenko and the man who you've had on your when you were doing podcast, Zarina, is Felsch. Yeah, Yuri Felstein, right? Is that his name?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I try to remember the name.
I
For
would just
like
remember
5 days now. Okay.
Who was who wrote books with Litvinenko, but Litvinenko was part of that the team that looking into all of this. And then he had to leave, then he called out the organized crime in Russia and he had to flee. So,
and of course, Litvinenko was the one who was poisoned by polonium. And
that's
then
right.
Luke Hardin wrote about him. Luke Hardin wrote pretty much about everything, and he's worth a read for everything that he wrote about. And last time, Post Pass, I know him for a number of years, and we did some festivals and stuff together and panels, and I interviewed him. And then we did a couple of trips in Ukraine. We went to Achakov, which is a prohibited area, but we managed to get in, and we did the report from there. And I recommend his every single book. And the last one, Invasion, which is now nominated for Orwell Prize.
Yes.
If you want to read one book about this war, read Luke's book Invasion.
Yeah,
He's
I did. You have to. I'll connect with you after, but I'll give you a link to the interview with him. But yes, now I need to watch your documentary. But how can we watch it if we don't live in Los Angeles or Northern California?
Good question.
Thank you. Great question. It's available online from bylinetv.com, I believe. And there is a link, and it's there for purchasing. And of course, we recommend to come into the premiere because that's how premieres work. But if you can't, you can purchase it there. And if you want to write a review, I'll send you a screener. Or if anybody,
there you go. Yeah.
We can do that. And also there are distribution rights that are now being arranged for it and I don't deal with it. I just made the movie. So our Byline TV and all that.
You do it. We're both doing it at the same time.
We're trying to put up the same thing at the same time. We're canceling each other out. So here it is, Eastern Front movie. Sorry, Greg.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
That's fine.
Right.
Thank you, True Player. All right. So, guys, we got to wrap this up. I feel like this show flew by. This is a great combination. I think we have to have you guys together.
Yeah, this is good. I like to bask in y'all's brilliance. This is good for me. It's good. It is. I think it's a nice intersection of knowledge that makes everyone listening to it, including myself, learn quite a bit. So I want to thank Jen Taub. I want to thank Zarina Zabrisky. Everybody stick around. It's now 9:37. Let's do 9:50. Okay. Is that okay, LB?
That sounds great. Log on to the after hours.
9:50 New York time. We're going to do the after hours. Zarina, Jen, if you want to come, we'll send you the link. You don't feel obligated to do so. We won't hold it against you. It's totally fine. But if you want to, we'll be there. And that's it. Are we supposed to end with a quote? Can
I go out on who the bell tolls quote?
Yeah, go out on.
Unless you have one, Greg.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Any man's death diminishes me because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for me.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.